But the Duke and his whole crew just stared at his son like they were totally shocked he even showed up. Harbenic was super ticked off because little Erin was hanging out in his grandpa's office again like she basically lived there. His dad told him to come sit down, admitting he'd been waiting on him for like forever. And yeah, there was a reason he hit him up. The Duke asked the guildmaster if they could extend the contract. And the dude was confused at first, like he had no clue what was going on. The Duke wasn't trying to rush things, but he wanted to make sure this whole deal wasn't going to be a total bust for him. It was like a super big deal and hard to lock down, without them both being on the same page trust-wise. So the guild leader asked how he could prove he was legit. Then out of nowhere, the Duke was like, "Erin, you're up," saying she was about to drop the most important part. So Erin turned right to Mr. Trunette. The guy cracked a smile, remembering her from the day before. He was totally curious about what little Erin's idea was, that she was going to share with him. Erin asked the guild leader to hook her up with some product samples. She said they were planning to cook up a magic tool that could tell if the products were legit or just knockoffs. The guild leader clued in that the kid was talking about making a detector for fake stuff, one that could check if any item was the real deal. Erin admitted they already had a magic tool called a gender revealer, and they were planning to tweak its formula to make a fake product detector. And get this, Sir Geoffrey himself was heading up the project to develop this one-of-a-kind thing, which basically meant it was guaranteed to be a hit. But it would be pretty much useless to the head of the trade guild. The guy started getting all antsy, and Erin could tell he looked like he knew that the magic gadgets Geoffrey made were always flawless. Harbenic then asked why Geoffrey was even getting mixed up in this. Because before he never cared about this kind of business, and was always just doing his research stuff. The Viscount chimed in that Geoffrey had been working with the young lady a ton lately, and she was the one who told him about this whole deal since she was helping the scientist out. The Duke was like, "Okay, enough about Geoffrey," and walked over to Erin saying, "Isn't this kid something else? 'Cause she just listens to what the grown-ups are saying and knows the perfect time to jump in." The guild leader was obviously sweating bullets, and he wanted to know if the magic tool was ready to go, but the Duke said the first draft of the design was already done, and that they'd start making it soon. The Duke admitted that there have been way too many fakes on the market lately, so he just decided he'd check his products and not stress about it too much after his chat with the Duke. The guild leader decided he needed to get his act together, but Harbenic kept pushing, saying the carriage was packed with merch, and that for sure there had to be at least one good thing in there. But the guy insisted he didn't have any valuable stuff he could show the guild. Harbenic noticed how the guild boss suddenly started talking to him with a totally different vibe, and the young dude had no idea what was going on. The guy's whole attitude did a complete 180 like out of nowhere, and he got super cocky. Harbenic started to suspect that the guild leader was probably up to something, to make a deal with another guild if the one with them totally bombed after the Duke's decision. He figured that was their only play, but for the Fellpack Guild there were like a ton of other crews, guilds that'd be down to make a deal with them. Finally, he told Mr. Trunette not to get all bent out of shape, but he made it super clear where he stood, like if he was in or out. The dude asked Mr. Harbenic when he was planning on sending the down payment, but the kid admitted they had time now and could just send it whenever they felt like it. The kid argued that if they needed the cash like right now, he could get it ready ASAP. The guild leader asked him to send whatever was ready first, and then he promised to prep some way better legit samples in the young lady's room. A major argument was kicking off, and it was obvious the girl was not vibing with the situation at all. Harbenic asked his wife to dig into the emergency funds, because when you think about it, the amount they were offering for the deal was pretty huge. His wife was totally ticked off because her husband didn't even have a clue how much cash they'd dropped to send Avalon to the academy and why the fam decided to hit up her dad for so much money, when in her opinion it made 0 sense. The guy promised her his idea would totally work and the deal with the Duke would be a lock. But his wife was so over his excuses. She was sure his empty promises were useless and that the guy would just end up losing his dad's support and their entire livelihood. Harbenic insisted that he was just as stressed and freaked out, because their whole money situation was completely up to his dad now, and his dad wasn't even backing his plays. But what he hates the most is how his dad listens to every single word little Saria says. She asked if he was for real talking about that little kid, Erin, since she had absolutely nothing to do with their family drama, and was still super young. The guy said the guild's products get checked to see if they're legit, and she's making a detector for fake products with Joffrey's help, and for being so young, that girl is already way too confident. Harbenic's wife realized that dude was meddling in their business again, and that someone might actually get in their way, and she was definitely not cool with that. She told her husband not to just let it slide because they needed to seriously shut this girl and Geoffrey down. The one who was now tight with the Duke. She meant they needed to split up Geoffrey and the girl somehow. Because when they were a team, their work got done way faster. Saria thought for a sec and said for sure that they should probably get ready, and that down the line they'd have to keep the kid away from the master, so they'd never get a chance to see each other. A super stoked Erin ran over to Geoffrey to tell him that her grandpa had greenlit making the fake bill detectors, which was awesome news. Geoffrey just ruffled the kid's hair and admitted he was really happy, because the talk went well judging by the huge smile on the girl's face. He promised to bring her a present later, and told the kid to have a seat at the table and spill the tea on how the chat with her grandpa went. Our girl happily hopped onto the chair and was about to tell Geoffrey everything but he looked totally zoned out. Erin picked up on this immediately and asked if Jeffrey didn't even care what she was going to do with the fake bill detector. But even though this magic gadget totally satisfied the little lady's curiosity, it meant like nothing to Jeffrey. Since our girl just grabbed it without asking first, she was scared Jeffrey would totally flip out again, but he probably didn't even care. Erin was having a super hard time figuring Jeffrey out, and she just really wanted him to like fully trust her. Erin said she's stoked to learn whatever Professor Hilberg is going to teach, and she's pumped for classes to start, but Jeffrey just told her to take it as a way to just chill and relax, and he was totally right. Because the connections the girl made with her students were way more important to her than the actual classes. Once the teacher gets back, the students who missed out on their independent prep will be coming back too, and Erin has to figure out which kids she should hang with. But the girl still needed to keep track of how much profit they'd made from the extra magic tool production, and she had to check the journal today. The second she thought about everything she had to do, the girl wanted to just scream an ugly cry, and the next minute, she didn't even realize how hard she started bawling. She apologized to Jeffrey, but at her age it was totally normal, and any kid can show their feelings. Jeffrey figured the little lady was probably just wiped out, and sent her to rest for a bit, which totally freaked her out. Erin felt like she was full of energy, ready to run around all day, but for some reason her battery drained way too fast, and her daytime naps were a total waste of time. The second her head hit the pillow, Erin knew it was the best call she could have made. While the kid was passed out in bed, the Duke walked into the lab and went over to his son. He came to talk about something important, and asked Jeffrey to discuss it in his office. Erin woke up instantly, because she clearly heard her grandpa's voice in her dream and realized he had just shown up. She was super curious about what the Duke wanted to talk to Jeffrey about, and for some reason her grandpa asked where Erin was. The young guy said that if the Duke came to talk to Erin, she was sleeping right now, and he'd probably need to come back later. But his dad had some business with him. Jeffrey told him to just get to the point, because he never had time for small talk. Erin was mad because Jeffrey was always so rude and they might start fighting with his dad again, so it'd be better for her to just pretend she was awake. But the second Erin moved, she overheard some unexpected words about adoption. The Duke was planning to make the formal adoption announcement at the annual meeting, and decided to give Jeffrey a heads up about it right away. He came specifically to tell him for a reason, and Erin was really hoping that Jeffrey would become her guardian too. The master thought Jeffrey would be worried that Erin would get in the way of his duties, but he told his son not to sweat it, promising him that wouldn't happen. Our girl listened closely to every word and realized that in that moment, all her plans were crashing down. Grandpa didn't come to ask Jeffrey to adopt Erin, and that was probably all he wanted to say to his son. The young guy walked over to the research table and asked his dad to give him time to take care of Erin, since he'd already talked about it before. Everyone totally got that Erin needed a family at this point in her life, and they couldn't just let her live in the mansion forever like some random guest. The gentleman asked if Jeffrey actually cared, so Erin was like, why'd he even take that adoption offer so weirdly? He was already thinking about some distant family members. But for some reason he totally put it off, and something was holding him back. If you think about the immediate fam, it's probably Joffrey's brother Harbenic, who majorly hates little Erin. Jeffrey was wondering if his dad was even thinking about letting Harbenic adopt the kid, but then ordering him to actually take care of her. Jeffrey was straight up saying his dad never even considered that keeping things as they are might be the best way to keep the girl safe, instead of just handing her over to Harbenic. But then out of nowhere his dad asked if Erin was Viola, would Jeffrey still be able to say all that stuff he just said? And hearing about some girl named Viola, our girl wondered if that was Jeffrey's daughter, but she'd heard that his kid and wife died in some explosion a few years back. The dude was sure that if Jeffrey was going to take care of the girl, he obviously wouldn't just be saying he was taking responsibility. And for real, Jeffrey's just projecting memories of Viola onto Erin without actually taking any responsibility for her at all. Jeffrey was pissed. It was a total guess from his dad, but he was pretty sure everything he was saying was true. Everyone in the whole mansion knew that Buraño's third son had locked himself away in his lab just clinging to memories of his dead wife and daughter. And he was sure it was even worse seeing Jeffrey playing with a girl the same age as his own daughter. This was so not happening, and the girl started to freak out. That everything she'd worked for was suddenly for nothing. Now she knew the deal with the adoption, and it was super clear that Jeffrey probably wasn't going to be her guardian. Irene faked like she was just waking up, and her grandpa figured the loud talking and all the noise probably woke the little kid up. Our girl wondered if the Duke had shown up because of the fake product detector. He must have been curious to see what was up. Erin could tell right away that Jeffrey looked super upset, and probably hurt by what the Duke said. Jeffrey always seemed kinda down after talking to his dad, cause his dad usually didn't listen to his opinion and just made him do whatever he wanted. The Duke let out this huge sigh, and the vibe between him and his son was still super tense. The little miss asked why her grandpa was sighing so hard when things were going so great for them. The girl asked if her grandpa was for real that tired, but he just smiled and said sweetly that he was totally fine. The Duke was crazy happy that Erin was the only one who cared about him and was always actually interested in how he was feeling. The old dude had always been a good grandpa to Erin, and she felt like she could tell him the whole truth. So the girl got all worked up and asked if she really had to leave the lab later on, cause she wasn't dumb or anything and totally got it. The Duke realized that Erin had apparently overheard his talk with his son in her sleep, and he told her they weren't going to send her away for adoption and that they really wanted her to be able to stick around with them for as long as possible. He told the girl not to sweat it, and whoever adopted her could always come hang out at the lab. But for our girl, it wasn't about visiting the lab at all. She knew she couldn't just straight up tell her grandpa that the Harbenic brothers were messing with her, and before he'd even listen to them, Harbenic would totally try to off her. The Duke was like, "So you don't vibe with the guy, huh?" Like Harbenic as a dad. She tried to low-key hint at it. She couldn't just straight up say she wasn't feeling him. But for real? Only she knew the tea on why Harbenic would decide to get rid of her down the line. So she told her grandpa that the brothers weren't cool with her and were always looking for a chance to mess with her. The Duke already knew the brothers were total troublemakers, so that was basically old news to him. So he was like, "What if you stayed with Jeffrey? He'd probably be down to adopt you too, Irene." She got all happy and said she loved hanging with Jeffrey because he was always giving her books and bringing her snacks every single day. But low-key, Irene and Jeffrey had this super genuine sweet vibe, and he was the one who always had her back. Whenever she was going through it, Jeffrey always stood up for the little lady, even when he was 100% sure she was the one who messed up. He was always in Erin's corner when she was getting done dirty. And in those moments, she'd get this warm, sunny feeling inside. But her dad's words about Jeffrey just using Erin totally got stuck in the guy's head. Our girl admitted that her favorite thing was doing research with Sir Jeffrey, and that she had zero interest in becoming Jeffrey's daughter. The Duke got that the girl was super used to Jeffrey, and that Jeffrey was a total stranger to her. The Duke was seriously stressing about what would happen to the kid, and asked her to just trust him, promising he'd find a spot where Erin would be more comfy. Erin really wanted them to let her stay with Jeffrey, but sadly she had no say in it. After that, things were chill for a bit. For a few more days, but the Duke was totally MIA since he started looking for a place for Erin, and Professor Gilbert still hadn't come back. During class, Erin spent most of her time hanging with her new crew. And the second break started, the boys immediately went to find their friend. Feldman found her by this massive, sprawling tree and asked her what she was up to. The girl said she was studying a book, but to the guys, it looked crazy hard. It was a book on how to run a business, and even that sounded way too complicated for the guys who hadn't even read the book yet. Nix said his dad read that book too, and he totally remembered it because he'd reread it a bunch of times. That book must be legit because even Nix's dad had heard of it and read it more than once. The guy admitted that Erin would probably vibe with his dad since they have a ton of stuff in common. Erin asked if he meant Sir Modali, and she only knew about his dad from what she'd heard in her past life. Our girl had barely ever talked to this dude, but he seems pretty easy to talk to, and they could for sure get along. Erin figured if she got tight with Nix's dad, she'd naturally get closer to the guy, which would totally be a win for her. Erin smiled and said she'd love to meet his dad and Nix, because if they were friends, she could hang out with Nix more. The kid was super hyped, because he really wanted his dad and Erin to become friends too. Our girl noticed that Nix seemed like he was in a great mood, and the brothers probably didn't mess with him today. She suggested they should all read a cool book sometime. But she whipped around when she heard someone nearby call her name a few minutes later. The girl was heading to her grandpa's office, and he asked how little Erin's training was going. She said she was just at the academy, and then she hit the lab and worked her butt off helping Jeffrey. Our girl then peeped the Duke's desk, which had a huge pile of papers on it. So her grandpa was probably grinding too since the annual meeting was right around the corner. The Duke was probably super busy, but he still found time to call for Erin, and she figured he was going to tell her about the adoption. But the Duke hadn't called her for that. He actually wanted to talk about a gift he wanted to give her, since she'd been helping her grandpa out a ton lately, and the lab upkeep was really only for Jeffrey's benefit. So the Duke wanted to get her something she actually wanted. Erin wondered if saying she wanted Joffrey to adopt her would sound way too pushy, or asking for some jewelry that might be useful down the line. Our girl played it smart and asked the Duke for a certificate instead, for one wish. The wish certificate would grant a single wish no matter when our girl wanted to cash it in. And her grandpa guessed that Erin probably couldn't think of anything. She admitted nothing came to mind, and the Duke totally loved her honesty more than ever. He smiled and was like he'd wait patiently with her to see what the little lady wished for, and he promised to make sure her wishes came true in the future. She confessed that her grandpa was the best in the world, but their chat got cut short by someone, the butler. He reported that the job he'd been given was done, and he'd come to give the Duke the update. The guy asked her to hang on for a bit, and she was happy to chill in the office while her grandpa handled his business. While the Duke was out, Erin noticed the papers on his desk and got interested in a certain report. She found the ledger for a bankrupt mine that used to be under Harbenic's control. Our girl remembered they cooked the books to make the mine's income look good, but in reality the whole thing was a total bust, and the mine lost a crazy amount of money even though Harbenic had already sent a payment up front to the guildmaster. Erin was confident that she could do something to shut this down now, and maybe Erin could use the ledger to keep Harbenic from adopting her. The Chadwick mine was a diamond mine that Harbenic had snapped up in a hurry to cover a trade deficit, but the mine wasn't producing any diamonds or coal and ended up becoming a total money pit. Harbenic had been losing money all year and decided to fake the ledgers so he wouldn't get his dad in trouble. In her past life as a secretary, The first thing our girl had to do was figure out this janky old ledger, of course. In her past life, Harbenic told her not to sweat it, and she was scared of getting canned, so she tried like crazy to fix the papers. Harbenic probably knew the Duke was way too slammed with the annual meeting, and planned to get away with faking all the documents. There wouldn't be any consequences for Harbenic, and our girl realized that would obviously be way too late. Now she needs to find some solid proof like ASAP, like right before the big annual meeting to make sure everyone there knows Harbenic is so not dad material. Erin's gotta find the legit ledger, not some fake one, but our girl had like zero clue where it could be. She didn't even have a vague idea where it was, and was totally bugging out trying to figure it out. Then it like hit her back when she was a secretary. She saw some papers in the account book and probably knew where they were stashed. Our girl remembered the book was for sure somewhere in the mansion, and this thing was apparently super top secret. She was positive there was a secret account book that only like certain family members could get their hands on, this one that Harbenic wrote and kept himself. And if Erin can find it, she's gonna spill all the tea on Harbenic at the Duke's big meeting, all while Erin was plotting her next move. It was already nighttime, and her grandpa was waiting for her with the butler. They came down just so they could all have dinner together. 'Cause it was totally time for the girls to get some grub. Erin figured she'd just dip to her room, but then plot twist, the Duke invited his granddaughter to eat with them. Erin had literally never been asked to eat with the fam before, so this news was like totally out of left field for her. I mean, she got the chance to have dinner with the Duke himself. So Erin and her grandpa walked down this huge bougie marble hallway, all the way to the dining room. On the way, they bumped into Harbenic, who immediately looked over at the Duke. The second he saw his dad, you could see the dude wasn't alone. His wife was right there with him, and Erin thought this was super weird. The girl was immediately sus of Harbenic and his wife. They were giving off major shady vibes, like they were scheming or something. She had no idea why her grandpa even invited her to dinner in the first place. But then Harbenic showed up too with his wife Saria, who smiled and admitted it was kinda random for his dad to invite them to dinner. So they showed up early and made a big deal about being there. Then she gave little Erin a major side eye, with a total "I'm better than you" look, but our girl never trusted that chick. Saria totally thought the Duke would be flying solo, but she acted all happy to see Erin with him. The Duke replied that the girl was just hanging with them, and he felt weird sending her back to her room all by herself. So he decided to bring her along for dinner, but he still has some urgent stuff to take care of today. So they'll have to get the brothers together some other time. Erin was so bummed because the Duke was still thinking about the whole adoption thing. And that news was a total downer. For the little lady, this was basically a disaster, because her plan wasn't even fully baked yet. But then right on cue, Sir Geoffrey showed up and asked what his dad was talking about with Harbenic and his wife. Erin was so stoked when she saw Sir Geoffrey and like instantly felt way better, because she felt like he totally had her back. Harbenic got all bent out of shape and claimed he'd called the guy ages ago, but for some reason he was only just showing up now. Geoffrey told his bro to chill and said that if the assistant hadn't come, he wouldn't have even bothered showing up either. The Duke was so over it because the brothers literally fight every single time they see each other. While a freaked out Erin walked behind him, she figured Geoffrey probably came because of her, to talk about the whole adoption drama. Turns out this dinner was way more crowded than just the Duke and Erin. So like these people had a major decision to make, and the little girl just sat down at the table. But she was so stressed she couldn't even hold a spoon because her hand was shaking like crazy, and even if she just picked at her food, her grandpa might not be cool with it. But props to the cooks, they tried. Geoffrey gave the kid her plate, saying it was probs the only thing that was actually edible, and Erin decided to actually try some. This dish was like way better than the last one, and after just one bite, Erin instantly felt a whole lot better. The Duke and Harbenic started talking shop about the stuff they were sorting out with the Fellpack Guild, and the little miss was totally listening in on their convo. The younger guy said they were prepping some top-tier samples, and that they got a smaller down payment than the guild leader asked for. Turns out the payment was already sent, and Harbenic was positive there were tons of other guilds ready to make a deal. He tried to prove to him that he was 100% right, and that this deal would be a total win for them. But for some reason, the Duke had a different take. He said he's planning to launch that research institute they had talked about before, and that the work could kick off pretty soon. The Duke argued that starting an institute like that was kind of jumping the gun right now, but his son wasn't hearing it at all. The young dude said they could even let her be a student if they made a school like that soon. Harbenic heard that little Erin was doing some basic math with Geoffrey's help, and having the institute would let them quickly set up direct production of their stuff. So the first thing the Duke decided to do was figure out the kids' living situation. And opening an institute was a solid idea for the near future. The Duke had mentioned he was planning on finding parents to adopt Erin at this year's annual meeting, and this was literally the first time Harbenic was hearing about it. Hearing her grandpa's words, Erin got super scared, because after the annual meeting, she'd probably have to go live with another family. But then he just dropped that he'd like Harbenic and his wife to be in the running to be her parents. Saria was the first one to speak up, asking the Duke to hold up a sec so she could get the missing deets. She asked what the Duke even meant by candidates to be her parents, and if there was like anyone else being considered. The Duke was going to give recommendations for a family from the main and side branches of the family, and that was the main condition. But if Erin gets sent to a side branch family, she wouldn't be able to live in the Duke's castle anymore. Because of that, the knight admitted he'd rather the main family line adopt Erin so the girl could stay and live with them. Harbenic looked like he was totally waiting for his dad to bring it up. And he answered that it'd be a huge honor for them, and they couldn't just turn down a blessing like that. Although Erin was sure her grandpa had said he'd pick the place where she was most comfortable, and if it came down to it, maybe she'd have to use her wish to say no. The Duke planned to recommend the Modali family as a backup option, and the person he meant was Nyx's dad. When they heard the name Modali, everyone looked at the knight totally shocked. Like, for real? Nobody expected to hear that name here. Modali was a major player in the Merchants Guild and was super trusted, so the Duke figured this dude would be a solid choice. The whole family was vibing with the adoption, and like the Modali fam was already in the loop and everything. Modali's son is like the same age as Erin, and he was totally stoked that his bestie might be joining his family. Harbenic got super salty when he heard the news, and Saria was trying to get the tea on why they were even bringing up candidates and making the adoption call at the annual meeting. She claimed the Duke wanted the adoption to be like super straightforward, but she thought it was way better to let them handle it and lock in Erin's spot in the fam ASAP. Saria was deadass sure it'd be even better for the young master's research if they just fast-tracked getting Erin under their wing. The lady tried to push for them to hand over the girl right away, but the Duke told her not to jump the gun. The knight shot back all confident, saying he'd literally never seen this dude get involved in family business, and you probably couldn't expect a legit opinion from him now. Jeffrey was just quiet this whole time, because he wanted to figure out what his dad's real intentions were. Harbenic already had 2 kids, so the Duke was pretty sure their hands were full, and with that in mind, he wanted to give both sides some time to think it over. He asked little Erin to think about it too for now, because he also wanted to know her honest opinion for real. The Duke warned that all the other stuff would be handled at the annual meeting, and for now, they could just have a chill dinner. It seemed like the only one who actually cared about what happened to the girl was Jeffrey, so right now the dude was more ticked off than ever. He and Erin were both getting heat from their families, but they each just wanted what was best for the other. That night after dinner, Erin was totally fuming because things had gotten to a place she so did not see coming. If Erin moves in with the Modali fam, she'll have a major ally in Nyx, but the girl is stressing about Modali's constant beef with Harbenic, and that means she'll keep fighting with her brothers. But like, given how important Nyx's dad is to the current Merchants Guild, the little lady would probably come out on top. The Duke had probably offered a pretty decent alternative. Erin was weighing all the pros of being adopted by this guy. Modali was a responsible and solid leader, but she had like no clue what he was like as a dad. Nunez never dissed his dad, and our girl only ever heard good things about him, so their whole vibe could totally have been friendly. But Erin was still thinking about Jeffrey adopting her, and honestly, she'd love to stay and keep doing her research with him. The girls even thought Jeffrey had decided to just dip on all this, but now was not the time to be all emo. After all, her goal isn't to get adopted by Jeffrey, it's to dodge Harbenic and his family. Therefore, our girl decided to just scrap the get adopted by Jeffrey plan, because it was never going to happen anyway. But thinking bigger picture, it was time to look at the whole situation. Erin was determined to do it. She's got another plan cooking now. But like, nothing's set in stone yet. The bad blood between Modali and Harbenic is a total double-edged sword, because Jeffrey hasn't decided where he stands yet either. Plus, the Duke still seems to be low-key on Harbenic's side. Erin had to scheme hard to make sure the Duke couldn't pull off his original shady plan. Yeah, Erin was dead set on making a move because she was not about to end up living with people she totally vibed against. And this time around, everything was in her control, because in her past life, she took a massive L and then Harbenic just got away with it, like, completely clean. So starting tomorrow, Erin swore to herself she was going to go all out to find the secret book, and that night she was totally wired, just running the plan over and over in her head. She figured she must have gotten the secret book at some super specific important time, and she probably just needed to wait it out, but the whole question of what Harbenic told her was still living rent-free in her head. And after all that, she didn't even notice when she crashed while working with the secretary. She remembered finding out about the real ledger once, and Harbenic would never leave it in the office because he knew it'd be a complete train wreck if someone swiped it. In her dream, she recalled Harbenic mentioning something about a training center, and about some person who definitely had a ledger. Erin jolted awake in the middle of the night from a dream where she totally remembered that the secret book was probably stashed at the training center. Back then, she probably didn't catch who the person was that handed Harbenic the secret ledger, but they had definitely been working there for ages, so Erin just assumed the secret account book was probably something Hilberg had, since he was the only one who'd been working at the training center for like forever. Professor Hilberg was finally back to his usual duties, and he welcomed all his students back to class. In the middle of the lesson, Nux slid up to his friend and told him he had a super important question that he needed to ask like ASAP. He asked if anyone was messing with Erin because she was acting totally off. Nux noticed that Erin looked super ticked off, and Edelman admitted that he also kind of wanted to know what really went down with her, but this whole time Erin was laser-focused on finding the ledger and had been on the hunt for it for a while. During the break, she was trying to avoid eye contact with Hilberg, but she still couldn't find anything that even looked close. The ledger was supposed to be made of some expensive bougie leather, so it would definitely stand out from the rest. so she was totally sure that if she saw it, she'd notice it immediately. She guessed the account book would be kept somewhere other than the Duke's castle, which would be a huge pain, but since the annual meeting was about to happen, she assumed he wouldn't keep the ledger he'd need for it outside the castle. And if that's true, she'll have to totally rethink everything. So if there's any chance she was wrong, and most importantly, she shouldn't jump the gun. She was pretty sure it was still early days, so things could still go down before Harbenic gives the ledger to Hilberg. But it would be clutch if it was stashed away safely in Harbenic's office. It was that very afternoon when she was scrambling to find the account book and was positive he'd stashed it in his desk drawer last. But now, for some reason, the account books were just gone. The dude had like zero clue where they could have vanished to or who even had the nerve to mess with him and pull a stunt like that. He was so ticked off, like he was ready to wreck anyone who dared to swipe his ledger. A little while before this went down, Alfonso was just trying to find a book in the library, but then surprised he stumbled on one he totally wasn't expecting to see. Like at all. It was this super bougie book all leather-bound with gold edges, and it clearly did not belong in a library. He didn't remember ever seeing a book like it before, but when he cracked it open, he saw it didn't even have a title. No author, not even a library sticker or anything, so it was a total mystery how a weird book like that ended up there. And my guy just had to figure it out. Flipping to the next page, he realized this wasn't just some boring account book, but a handwritten journal talking about some kind of down payment for a dress on a contract, and this book was probably being kept safe by one of the family members. After skimming a few more pages, Alfonso saw some tea he definitely wasn't supposed to see. Meanwhile, Erin couldn't find the ledger all day and had no clue where it could be, just in case he hit up Gilbert to see if he knew anything, and the other staff at the academy, but it was pretty obvious that only the teachers were ever there. That meant Gilbert was the one who hung around the academy the longest and probably had the book. But with no actual proof, it was crazy hard for Erin to find anything. Suddenly, Miss Marie walked into the office, but to Erin's surprise, she wasn't alone. With the super friendly Marie were 3 maids who were totally checking out little Erin. One of them was like, it's a huge honor to serve her, and that maid's name was Lisa. The third one was named Sarah, and she was shook by how cute the little lady turned out to be. Erin asked Marie who all these people were, and it turns out these maids were going to be working with her now, because the Duke had hired more help for the little lady. The maids were always crazy busy during the annual meeting, so Marie was super relieved, and Erin was totally stoked to meet these nice ladies who were all promising to look after her. After the nice little meet and greet, Erin decided she had to get back to work ASAP, but none of the new maids could know about it. So the girl just said she wanted to be alone and read a good book. The maids kind of looked like they didn't want to leave though, but she was like, I'm good for now, and promised she'd totally call them if she needed anything. Marie came over to her and said, all concerned that she'd been cooped up in her room since getting back from the academy that morning, and the weather outside was like amazing. She said the little lady should probably go for a walk with the maids. The girls were super excited to offer to play a game of hide and seek with her outside, and one of them also knew how to make awesome flower crowns. But Erin knew she had to focus on her plans, not play hide and seek or make flower crowns. But sad face, she couldn't tell anyone what was up, and she knew the maids. They were probably not going to leave her alone until she agreed to play with them outside. She warned them she had to return a book to the library, but the maids were going to follow her anyway. But homegirl dipped so fast, the ladies didn't even have time to blink before she was already out of sight. One of the maids asked if they should follow the girl, but the other was sure that she was just feeling awkward around them, and if they were too extra on the first meeting, she might get overwhelmed. Mari knew that Erin barely talked to anyone, even when she was at the castle, and only like super recently had she started to vibe with her peers, and it seems Erin still just locks herself in her room and keeps reading like a ton of different books all the time. The new maids were convinced that their job was crazy important, so they had to try and do everything the little miss asked for, and be super supportive so she could chill out properly. Erin had already managed to ditch the maids and looked back to make sure no one was tailing her. She totally appreciated their concern, but right now was not the time for our girl to be playing around, and she needed to plan something in the library. She accidentally bumped into Alfona, who gave the little lady a super cheerful hello. She asked if the kid was looking for a book, but a surprised Erin said she just came to read. The librarian said she'd be at the counter, and if the little one needed anything, she could always hit her up. Erin was kinda shook by the question, because she was for real looking for a special book. But she was even more shocked when she saw that top-secret ledger bound in super expensive leather, right in Alfona's hands. She followed the librarian but couldn't get why the secret account book was in the young woman's hands, because that should not have happened. Just a few minutes before Erin got there, Alfona had just found this ledger and realized it definitely belonged to one of the Buraño family members. She saw insane amounts of money in the book, and the spending was totally unrealistic, even though the plants from the new continent were pretty rare. She'd also saw weird objects with different words written on them, and a huge commission for some item that wasn't even listed, which was wild in itself. And right when Alfona was processing this tea, little Erin walked into the library and she had to stop reading the sketchy ledger. The account book stayed in Alfona's hands while she greeted that little lady. The woman accidentally asked the girl if she was looking for a book, but she didn't even realize she'd asked a totally dumb question. Alphona was worried that her whole vibe seemed awkward and put the mysterious book down in front of her. When the little miss saw this book, she was so surprised she clocked it immediately, but Alphona knew that when the girl left, she would for sure have to return it to its original spot. Our girl walked up to the librarian's desk and turned to the woman to ask a pretty important question all of a sudden. The little miss asked what kind of red leather book was on her desk. Its cover looked so cool she wanted to read it. Alphona was totally baffled that Erin had decided to ask about that specific book, and now she had no idea what to say back. She claimed that the book supposedly wasn't formatted for reading yet, and was absolutely not a kid's book, so it was unlikely she could read it. Alphona was relieved that the girl stopped asking nosy questions because she needed to put this book back where it belongs, like ASAP. Erin had been totally scoping out the librarian this whole time, and she saw her just straight up stash the account book in the desk. But seeing how sus she was being about it, our girl figured it had to be the secret book she was looking for. Like no way the Harbenic account book had somehow on the down low ended up with Alphona, and yet it still totally caught our girl's eye. Now that she was thinking about it, Alphona was always running over to the school center to do stuff for Hilbert, and for real she was like the perfect employee for Harbenic. Erin felt like she'd been totally blindsided, because they'd found the secret book in such a random way, and she was getting a super bad vibe from Alphona. For our girl, everything was turning out to be a major mind freak, because nothing was going according to plan. Hilbert walked into the library and asked the librarian to dip out and help him with some work. He promised Alphona would get the whole picture once she got out in front of the library building where the carriage was supposed to be. The lady was all polite and agreed to follow the professor, and while Hilbert was just casually strolling to the exit, Erin realized that as soon as Alphona was gone, Hilbert went straight for the bookshelves and started hunting for something. She could tell the dude was for sure looking for some special book, and she was pretty sure he was talking about that asterisk secret book. Erin just hung back to keep an eye on Hilbert for a little longer, since he was acting so sketchy. Our girl decided to step in and stop the teacher from finding the book that she desperately needed now. Erin politely said hey to the teacher, and he just saw this girl with these huge, curious eyes looking up at him. She was like, "Hey, are you looking for a book? Have you been looking for a super long time?" And if the teacher was really hunting for a specific book, she suggested just asking Alphona since, she's the librarian here. Our girl even offered to go get the lady and bring her back ASAP, but the teacher was all like, nah, that's not necessary, and that it would probably just be a waste of time. Erin had already clocked the professor's shady behavior, because if he actually needed the book, he would have just called for Alphona. But she pushed back, saying there was no way a book could be in the library that the person who works here knows nothing about. The professor was obviously shook and told the girl he must be a little mixed up, and Erin was looking sharp as heck. Our girl decided she'd bounce back to the academy for a bit and maybe come back later with the librarian, and that she totally hoped the teacher would enjoy some interesting reading in the meantime, especially after finding out that Alphona wasn't supposed to know anything about the book. Erin was left wondering who was even telling the truth, and now the professor was looking extra sus, and there was for sure something off about how he was acting. Professor Hilbert was slick enough to send the librarian away and totally use the fact she was gone, but the wildest part is, he never even found the book he was looking for, even though he looked in a super specific spot. And that probably means the book that was hidden just vanished. So it seems like he was looking for something that could totally be hidden in the library, and a book would be the perfect cover, especially since this is a private library run super strictly by the family, and the whole place is on major lockdown. In our girl's past life as a secretary, it literally took her a whole year to finally get a key card. And even then she had to get permission from the librarian every single time. So almost no one ever goes to the library, and the only family member who even steps foot in there is Jeffrey. This means if you wanted to pull off the perfect crime, all you'd have to do is stash the book there, and Jeffrey would never find it. That's totally why Erin couldn't track it down even though she'd been tearing up the training center all day. She didn't realize it only had books Jeffrey would find super lame. She was legit shook that Gilbert would hide the ledger in the library, and if it hadn't been for Alphona, it probably would have stayed hidden forever. But for some reason it fell into this young girl's hands, and she could tell right away that something was totally sus. Judging by Alphona's reaction, Erin could see she was completely clueless about what was actually inside the account book. There were way too many possibilities, so it was hard to figure out the real reason. And BTW Alphona was Erin's librarian. A librarian she'd never even seen in her past life. The one the main character met after her trial period was over. Had nothing to do with Alphona. This other girl was smart, and on top of her game handpicked by the Buraño Erin family. Erin just assumed there was some drama with the ledger that got the librarian fired and made Gilbert stick around the mansion until the brothers left for the academy. At least this whole incident wouldn't have messed with the professor's work, but other stuff went wrong here too. It's totally possible that in her past life, Alphona tried to get something out of the ledger but failed, which got her canned. Or maybe she actually found out what was in the book and Harbenic just took care of her. That night our girl was just getting ready to crash, and one of the new maids was carefully brushing her hair. Erin showed Lisa this awesome magic portable hairdryer, which the girl had probably never seen, and told her it was a total game changer. Lisa couldn't believe how fast it dried her hair, and Erin was so stoked that people were actually digging her invention. She explained it was made by Jeffrey, the guy who looks out for her. Lisa promised to be super careful with the magic gadget. The maid started stressing that if she broke the thing, she'd be in deep trouble. But Erin just laughed and admitted that Jeffrey's whole vibe can seem terrifying. But he's actually a good dude. I mean, he hooks her up with homemade snacks every single day, and even bakes her amazing cakes. But Lisa was not buying it because to everyone else, that weirdo Sir Jeffrey was a total loner and super emo. Lisa said she'd stay in the girls' room until she fell asleep, because she couldn't just leave her by herself. Erin started to worry that the maids were going to start taking shifts to watch her every single night, which was the last thing she needed. She knew that if they did that, she wouldn't be able to sneak around at night anymore, and that would totally blow up her plan. But Erin didn't wait around and decided to ask Lisa for a solid. So a little later, the two of them were in this massive library, and Lisa was hunting for the right book. She told Erin to hang tight for a sec while she went to find a ladder to get the book she needed from the top shelf. Erin was just trying to buy herself some time alone in the library to confirm something. Based on how Alphona was acting earlier, it was super likely that today was the first time she ever found the account book. And since Erin had already shown she was interested in it, it would have been really hard for Alphona to do anything. Put it back and there was no way she could just take it home. So Erin was like, if I** was the librarian, I'd totally hide the book somewhere super secret. She figured it'd be way safer to just stash it under the table. And boom, using that logic, our girl found the red leather book easy peasy. She was like crazy happy. When she finally snagged that super secret book she'd been hunting for days, this was totally the exact same Harbenic ledger she knew about. And now she just decided to hide this book with the other ones. Holding the secret book, Erin felt like a total main character, 'cause mission accomplished. And the book would be hidden soon. No matter how hard Harbenic looks later, that ledger is basically Gonezo. The maid handed the book over, and Erin was so stoked that her plan totally worked out. Seeing a bunch more books in her hands, Lisa was like, "Are you seriously gonna read all those?" She also hid the ledger real careful right in front of her and was like, "Yeah, these books are super important, and I have to read them." After giving all the books to Lisa, Erin was all happy saying they could head to her room now, and she could finally crash. Then out of nowhere, Lisa asked why she was so into reading since she'd stacked up this huge thick pile of books. She asked if Erin read because she was lonely or just wanted something to do. But for Erin, it wasn't like that at all. And right then, she was thinking about teaching herself while she had the chance to work there, but there weren't any books for beginners to learn the letters, and in the end, she couldn't even read her own name. Then, out of the blue, Erin offered to teach the maid how to read, since she'd known all her letters for ages. She promised that if Lisa just memorized a few letters, she could totally write her name no problem, and after that, reading books would be a piece of cake because remembering the letters is way easier than you'd think. Lisa looked at her and saw a cool older sister who actually wanted to teach her. The maid got all emotional, knowing the little miss wanted to teach her without making her feel like she was dumb or couldn't read. Lisa even guessed that Erin probably dreamed of being a teacher. Or maybe she wanted to be a super smart researcher like Jeffrey. The little lady proudly admitted that when she grew up, she wants to be a merchant at a huge trading company just like her grandpa. Her goal is to get so loaded that she'll never have to work again for the rest of her life. Lisa just smiled and was like, "Well, to do that, you've definitely got to hit the books hard." And Erin knew that better than anyone. The maid realized that even though people say Erin's shy, she's not really like that at all. She promised Erin she'd back her up 100% so she could make her dream happen, 'cause success was totally in her future. She said the little lady should hang out with the maids more, whenever she could, because they could for sure help her out. But they weren't alone in the library that night. Someone else was trying to be sneaky and find something in there too. The next morning, the maid gave a little knock on her door asking if she was gonna wake up, but Erin was already wide awake and was totally ready for a new day, giving Ash a good morning shout-out. Erin woke up super early and was feeling amazing. She immediately told her maid about her awesome mood, and Ash right away asked if something good happened to her that morning. Erin looked super cheerful, and for real the girl slept crazy good that night. 'Cause having a sick weapon in her hands was definitely a good thing, but Erin just smiled and said that wasn't it at all, and that something else was making her happy. The maid Ash carefully got the girl ready for class, and little Erin looked so freaking cute in a white dress. Ash was so glad everything went perfectly today, and that they actually managed to get ready on time. Erin thanked Ash for the Gorg dress and hairstyle, and told her she was all set for the academy. But then out of nowhere, the maid said she'd be walking with the miss today, which was a total shock. Ash explained that the maids would be escorting the girl to and from the academy for a few days. But Erin insisted she could go by herself. The second Ash opened the door, though Erin totally got what she was talking about, there was a crazy amount of guests in the courtyard. The maid said that for the next few days, the annex would be just as wild as the main house. A ton of people would be coming and going, and relatives from out of town would be crashing in the annex. As soon as Erin pictured being alone in that crowd, it was an instant nope, so she happily agreed to go with Ash. Now they could just chill and head to the academy together, and our girl was glad she wasn't rolling solo. The annual meeting was coming up, And when it came to the Buraño family's activities from the secretary's POV, it was just a massive workload. Before it was something that had like zero to do with Erin, but now that she was part of the fam, it just hit different. For the little miss, it was a huge battle in her past life. And now she was still fighting for her life. Ash asked if she should scoop the miss from the academy around lunchtime, but Erin assured her it was all good. She was planning to hit up the academy and then swing by Jeffrey's lab, and for now she decided to play dumb and give the book to Jeffrey today. Erin was sure she could move on to the next part of her plan. No sweat, but to her huge surprise, the unexpected happened. After class, she went to the lab. But Lord Jeffrey hit the girl with the latest news, which she literally could not believe. Last night, Jeffrey was busy same as always, drawing up new research plans, and there were absolutely no red flags. He was sure everything was ready, but it was just a temporary fix. But even that was enough to call the gadget a counterfeit product detector. For some reason, though, after finishing the work this time, Jeffrey felt kinda off. It was something that had never happened to him before. No matter how small the task was, he always felt that sense of accomplishment when he finished, but this time was different. And maybe it was because of that whole incident at dinner. He'd seen Erin freeze up in fear the second Harbenic's name was mentioned. And still they'd given her up for adoption without a second thought. Jeffrey knew his dad was totally in the dark about this little girl, and he knew he was the only one who could help her become the person she wanted to be. The fact that the Duke... But then Lord Jeffrey spilled the tea to the girl, and like she was totally shook. Last night, Jeffrey was on his usual grind, cooking up some new research plans, and there were legit no red flags. He was sure everything was good to go. But it was just a quick fix, you know? Still, it was enough to call the thing a knockoff detector. But for some reason, after wrapping up his work this time, Jeffrey just felt off. That was a total first for him. Like, no matter how small the task was, he always got that good feeling after finishing it. But this time just hit different. And maybe it was because of that whole scene at dinner. He'd seen Erin. She totally froze up the second Harbenic's name was dropped, and yet they just put her up for adoption without a second thought. Jeffrey knew his dad was totally clueless about this girl, and he knew he was the only one who could actually do something to help her become the person she was meant to be. The whole situation with the Duke. Him picking someone else to be her dad totally means he wants to raise her himself. Erin under his thumb. But even being that dead set on it, the Duke still had a backup plan for Erin, who's kinda awkward around all the Harbenic kids from the other families. He literally handpicked the options he gave her. And Jeffrey had no clue if his dad was trying to turn Erin into some business mogul, cause like Erin was crazy smart. She'd crush it at anything for real. But if Jeffrey were in his dad's shoes, he wouldn't be trying to map out her whole life like that. The girl's whole career path, I mean. And with her skills, it'd be way better if she got to like find her own way and become a magic scientist. Jeffrey was positive Erin was meant for something else, and he was seriously stressing about this girl. Up till now, Jeffrey's whole world was basically magic science, and for the longest time, family drama meant nothing to him. But ever since he lost his wife, he was so sure that family stuff was off the table for him. But then he met little Erin and realized there was something way more valuable in his life than just science. And he knew like 100% that his feelings for the kid were legit, and not just what his dad thought. Jeffrey felt totally lost because this whole adoption thing was still up in the air and had to be settled like ASAP. He had no idea what the right move was, plus he couldn't change his dad's mind anyway, who'd probably already made his final call. That night in the library, Jeffrey spotted Erin with the maid, and he totally went unnoticed. He remembered exactly what Erin said, that she was going to turn all her other drawings into actual products too, and was brainstorming what to make next. For real, his dad knew zip about this brilliant girl, but now Jeffrey knew way more. He figured Erin must have been hunting for some book in the library that night, which was a total shocker. And Jeffrey realized, kinda bummed out, that he probably didn't know that little kid at all. So the next day, Erin swung by the lab like she always did after her classes to say what's up to Jeffrey and help him out. But for some reason, Jeffrey was acting totally weird that day, and didn't even say hi when little Erin bounced in all happy to see him. It was a super tough call for Jeffrey, but he had to tell Erin she couldn't come to the lab anymore. For our girl, this came out of nowhere, and she instantly felt like she'd done something wrong. But Jeffrey now knew that Erin was keeping her own secrets from him too.